Welcome everyone to the raw and uncut version of the Sellout Show. Shawn, tell our listeners what surprises we have in store for them today.
Well, we have a guest who is a VP of sales. His name is Michael Maynes, and he's going to show you why you should love your funnel and pipeline and forecasting. Believe it or not, yes, that is going to happen today, my friends.
And even you might have a new perspective on that nasty little CRM.
Yeah. All right. So stay tuned. Watch the whole stinking thing because a surprising question at the end. It took me by surprise anyway.
It gets real at the end. And
all right, here we go.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Subscribe if you haven't already. You know you want to.
All right. Here we go.
We are recording.
So I'll start. Welcome everyone to the Sellout Show, where we are always sold out. I am Dianna in my new office, and I am the irreverent sales girl, and my mission is to bring a dash of dignity to the art of selling.
Hi, Dianna. Hi, everyone. I'm Shawn Sandy. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of the Selling Agency, where we coach humans how to sell to other humans. Because if you're just selling like throwing darts and seeing what sticks, you're not going to be a very good dart player. A strategy.
That is such an excellent lead into our conversation today. We have
a super duper guest.
Super duper special guest. So who's joining us? I'm so excited. His name is Michael Maynes. And he is VP of Sales Extraordinaire. And we normally don't have VPs on, but why I wanted Michael to come on today is because he is a master of forecasting how your sales are going to go for the year. And because, Shawn, because we are dedicated to people going from 5 to 6 figures in sales, you've got to be able to actually predict what your sales are going to actually be rather than what you hope they'll be.
Right. I mean, hoping for the best. Well, that just doesn't really get you very far. So forecasting, I want to get into it with Michael, why it's important. But, Dianna, you brought up some stuff that Michael wrote, and he's like a sales poet, a sales and math poet.
I almost cried. So he says math is his first language, but this is the last sentence of what I read. It's the last 2 sentences. Sales stands at the center of seemingly non-binary data points, resulting in wins and losses, ones or zeros. There is logic and emotion, and it's my mission to help the world of sales become predictable from a predictably irrational environment. So, and this guy's no small potatoes. He actually worked on a team that helped a company get acquired by LinkedIn, and he helped a team go public, one company go public, because he's the master of predictable forecasting. So without further ado, I'm going to send him a Zoom link and ask him to join us.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to bring Michael Maynes on.
I have a couple of questions because having been in the sales role, I want to ask him. We've not always loved the CRM or the efforts to put in the CRM. I see it every day, salespeople. I want to ask him what we can do to help you sellers love that relationship a little more. There he is. Yeah. Oh, wait. There's a picture of him. Here he is.
Yes, Michael. Welcome.
How
are you? Thanks for having me. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Just so you know what we just did to you, we kicked off the show with the last 2 sentences that you wrote in your very first introduction of your blog to that there is logic and emotion, and what your mission is to bring predictability to sales, which is just gorgeous. And Shawn had a couple ideas too that she wanted to talk to you about. But before we start, I'd like to introduce you to Shawn Sandy. She is the Chief Revenue Officer of the Selling Agency, where they coach humans how to sell to other humans, because selling like robots is so last year.
It's very last year, isn't it?
It is like kicking you out.
But I'll tell you what, SAP and IBM they're going to invest boatloads in AI and make sure that is pushed down everyone's throat. But it's humans at the end of the day. So Shawn, I agree. I love it.
Awesome. Trust me, there'll be plenty of work for me.
So Shawn, I really liked where you started. The reason that I wanted Michael to join us is we don't normally have VPs of anything on our show because we really are all about the practitioners. But since our mission is to help people go from 5 to 6 figures in sales, it's important for you to be able to actually forecast if you're going to make it past 6 figures, if you're going to be on target for your earnings, or if you're going to make quota. So I think that's radically important for salespeople to get their arms around. And so that's why I wanted to have you on today, Michael. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. I feel honored, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of wisdom that I have in my side of the world.
Oh, excellent. Well, so Michael, I'm going to presume you came up in sales in a sales role before you became a VP, right?
From all the way down, from door knocking all the way up.
My people.
Yes.
So one of the things I think right off the top I want to know is I coach salespeople in all different varieties of industries and different types of roles, from account executive to to the business owner, and no one loves the CRM. And I've met very few salespeople who love the process of inputting data to understand where they are and to get to an end result, or even to use that data. Maybe it's a personality trait with salespeople. They just want to they want the action, they want to do and stuff. But how can we help sellers? Because it's so important to understand where we are. We have to have the funnels. We need to understand the forecast so that we can make business decisions based on that. From the VP and business owner level or CEO, we have to be able to understand what's going on in the organization. But from the salesperson level, how can we help sellers reset their mindset so that they understand that relationship between CRM and success and forecasting, so that they become, they fall in love? How can we help them fall in love?
Right. I agree. I think it's a salesperson's trait to engage as opposed to do tedious tasks.
Right.
And I did not fall in love with a CRM until the day that I was a sales leader, and I needed it to do, forecasting. But to your question, how can we help? I think we're at an age where technology creates incredible efficiencies. So a lot of the methods that we have in place to collect data don't require a lot of involvement. I mean, your CRM can capture emails. Your CRM can actually do the dialing, so it will record the calls and put calls in place. There are CRMs now that are even changing stages based on actions from the client. So I think there's a lot of talk tracks we can go down with this, but to keep it simple and to keep it for the salesperson and how they can do right by themselves for forecasting, I would say know your stages. Know the stages of the CRM. It's the most simple model to creating success for yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to have you elaborate on that. Know your stages. Why?
Yes. Well, you want to know your stages because the stages, if they're done in an intelligent way, are designed to be predictable, right? And a stage should not be about the actions that you take. If I try to negotiate, if I send an SOW, if I do the discovery call, if I'm doing calibration, that's my journey. That's my journey as a salesperson, and it opens up one of the most dangerous things for destroying pipeline predictability: happy ears. Everyone wants to have the big wins, and if you want to have the big wins as a salesperson, you got to believe in yourself. Mm-hmm. So when someone says, "Hey, is that going to close?" Of course you're going to say, "Yes, that's going to close."
Yes.
I've only said that for 3 quarters in a row. It's going to close.
Yeah, it's definitely closing. Somebody's closing it.
So it's our nature to fight against ourselves, right? It's our nature to be very optimistic and to have those happy ears. So make sure, if your sales leader hasn't done this, make sure you do this for yourself. When you're defining what stage someone is in the pipeline, base it off the other person's actions. Base it off your prospect's actions. this is a journey. It's not a journey about you and what you're doing. This is a journey about them and what you're going to be able to provide them at the end of the day.
You are so speaking Shawn's language. Oh my God.
I think it's hilarious that we think we can make buyers fit into our funnel, and like it's like herding cats. Like, and if I'm the buyer, I don't give a crap about your process and your stages. I'm only going to do what interests me. I promise you that. Yeah. So how important is it that you not only understand the stages, but for sellers, setting up those stages and understanding what those actions mean? Give some examples of that.
I mean, I feel it's everything. I really feel, I don't think I've been part of a successful business that hasn't had clearly defined buyer and seller actions related to a stage.
Right.
And guess what? You have to be open to the fact that, this isn't fluid. The stages, the way they're written, it's A, B, C, D,
right,
one to the other. And we're visual people, we're salespeople, we're off to the races. We leave the start line and there's the finish line and there's no going back. But sales is not like that.
No.
And so it's hyper important to be fluid. It's hyper important to, set expectations for the client, or the prospect. Have expectations for yourself. Know when you're gonna, say that I've had enough. And salespeople, successful salespeople, do that. Successful salespeople say, I know what my time's worth. It isn't this. I'm not getting to this stage, and this stage has clearly defined path to get there, and I just don't have anyone to get there with in this opportunity. I'm going to walk away.
Ooh, that's a hard one. I mentioned that before. Like, sure, that's going to close. It's going to, I've had it my pipeline for 3 quarters. But I just feel it in my bones. This is the quarter. I'm like, I am so tired with myself. I'm so tired of talking about the same deal. I just literally just want to erase it from the plan. Like, go over, start from the beginning, or kick it out or something. Why do you think, is it denial? Is it, why
I know what it is.
That stuff so
I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write this down, and it's beyond happy years, but I'm going to write down my answer on a piece of paper, and then I'm going to hear what people have to say. But how did you phrase the question?
Why are sellers so hesitant to kick something out of their pipeline? Why do they hold on to, the hope that this is going to close, this is the quarter? What is that?
Okay, Michael, tell yours.
It's human emotion. It's what I think is predictable, but it's predictable in a very irrational way. Human emotion. You're afraid. Like you feel losing a deal is losing, and you value yourself based on that opportunity. Based, like, a lot of things carry beyond financial, finance, for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, when you invest a lot of time, when you think you're there, and think about sales cycles that are 9, 10, 12 months, and you literally are in the last 2 to 3 weeks, and it just isn't going to happen. And that's a year of dedication, so there's a lot of psychology, there's a lot of emotion that comes out. And I think passionate people, it's very hard for them to let go of those, losses.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of many answers, but Dianna, you jotted something down. I'd love to hear it.
You may not be able to see this.
Pipeline? No pipeline. Yeah.
Full pipeline cures all ills. And I promise you, when people are holding on to those last vestiges of hope with that deal that's got to cross the finish line for them to make their number, they have not been prospecting. They have not been nurturing. They have not been caring for their pipeline. A full pipeline cures all ills. Because something's going to close, you just don't know which one. But it takes I usually say I have to have 3, anywhere between, depending on the sale, 3 to 10 times in my pipeline what I need for my number, period, as real opportunities.
I usually take my conversion rate and half it to play it safe.
There you go.
and I measure my pipeline the same way. Yeah.
Oh, I have
So do the math. So what does that look like? I'm somebody that needs to close, I don't know, let's just make round numbers. I need to close $100,000. How do you do the math on what you just said? My conversion rate, like let's put it into actual, how do you actually do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are so many areas you can go down this road for what it's worth. I mean, we can talk about methodologies for whales, methodologies for, you know, the average deal size, methodologies for sales cycles. But I would say, to keep it simple for the conversation, you know, let's say you have 100,000 you have to close in a quarter.
Yep.
And I would figure out my average deal size. Myself as a rep, not as an organization. Let's call it 10 grand.
Okay.
I know that my conversion rate past a certain stage is X. And so I would simply work the math backwards, where if I know once it gets to negotiation, I have a 50% chance of closing it, then I'm going to make sure, well, at the very least, the numbers are telling me I need 20 opportunities in negotiation.
Yeah.
But I'm no dummy, and I don't want to end up, you know, not hitting that 100K. So I'm gonna play the odds.
You're gonna double.
Well, in that case, double, sure, but at least have, you know, a buffer. At least assume my conversion's, you know, a 30 or 40%, right? And I'm gonna make sure that the rest of that quarter, I'm building pipeline, building opportunity to get to that stage, to get to that opportunity. So we get fixated on this one stage of close one, and we treat all the other stages equal. Guess what? Those stages are not equal.
Mm-hmm.
They're not equal. And there are going to be people that are going to fall out very quickly as you start to push them through. And you rush them, and they're going to get pushed out even faster. I love this conversation, and I think it's really difficult because there are so many avenues we can take a lot of this. So,
well, I have kind of an unusual take on conversion theory, and this is why, if I could tee this up and say, this is why knowing, you know, your history, knowing the data, and understanding your conversion rate in your pipeline is so important. Do you know what the opposite of your conversion rate is? If your conversion rate is 30%, the flip side of that means your casualty rate is 70%.
Casualty rate. Oh my God, this is getting really exciting.
wow.
Yeah, because
I love that.
Right?
I've never thought of it like that.
If you look at basketball players, and you know, if they had a 30% conversion rate, they would not be on a team, because it's a 70% casualty rate. Those are missed opportunities. Now, what that does is it forces you to say, well, not everything is going to be a great opportunity. Aha, then you need to pre-qualify that crap out of your pipeline. So if you look at the opposite of conversion rate as a casualty rate, and say, what can I do to either make sure I'm pursuing the right opportunities or improve my skills to increase my conversion rate? Those are the only two ways you really can improve your conversion rate. And that is where you focus on skills. That's my soapbox.
That is excellent. I mean, it opens the door for just the way you think about the problem. And if you think about the casualty rate, you can do two things with it. You can say, okay, that's my casualty rate. How do I lower it? So let me go look at the casualties and lower them. But what you just pointed out is even more important thing. If you're going to stick to a 70% casualty rate, then let's just make it half the time. We're spending half the amount of time on it that we usually do with, as you mentioned, like pre-qualifying that a little bit better.
Right.
You know, the craziest thing too, I hate to bring in a little bit of woo-woo, because you know that I am the dyed-in-the-wool non-woo-woo, right? I think. Actually, I probably am very unself-aware about that. But what
That's
I have
another conversation we can have.
we'll need to go to our ashram. Oh wait, I don't know. At any rate, but what I have found is when you clear the garbage out of your pipeline, the real stuff starts to move a lot faster. And when I get myself really in a jam, like something's just not closing, it's kind of like a watched pot never boils. you know, a watch deal never closes. I don't know how to say it better, but when I start focusing on other parts of my pipeline and clearing garbage out and just having the conversations like, look, it's okay if this is a no, but let's just call it a no and let everybody out of the pain. It starts to move. It starts to give space for these other things to close. Do you find that, Shawn or Michael? Am I being crazy?
Well, so the two things, I'm always a mom and a coach. I don't care where I go. I'm always a mom and a coach. The two things you don't do, if you're my kid, you don't ever say you're bored. Oh, you're bored? I'll show you bored. Let's find stuff to clean, right? And as a salesperson, you don't show up and say, I need more leads and I need a lower price. Like, just don't even try that. Like,
don't come at me with that. I need the Glengarry Glen Ross leads, please.
So usually when someone says, I need more leads, we go take a look and we go fishing in their pipeline. And they have plenty of opportunities, just not doing anything with them to move them.
They have a bucket of excuses usually.
Bucket of excuses. I like that. You know what you can buy with a bucket of excuses?
Pull out of nothing.
Pull out of nothing.
Actually, it's expensive. It's more expensive than you can't buy anything. It actually sets you way back. What do you say, Shawn? Excuses are lies.
Excuses are lies you tell yourself when something looks too hard or you think you might fail. They're lies. Don't buy your own excuses.
No, don't do that. It's just not even worth your time to buy your own excuses, right? You've got results or you've got reasons.
Well, the other thing I figured out too, because I was having this conversation with one of my salespeople, like I'm part shrink too, like that's just part of it.
All good salespeople looks like
yeah, that's what my husband said. Like he said, your new set looks like you're a shrink. I was like, I'm okay with that. But excuses are compounding as well. You make the first excuse that tees up the next excuse because if you're going to buy it, you've got to keep paying for it. And excuses are compounding. And if you keep paying for those excuses, you just so you have a whole bucket of excuses.
I'll tell you, I'm gonna plug a book that I absolutely love. It's a leadership book, but I think every salesperson should read it for this particular topic. It's called Extreme Ownership.
Yes. Extreme Ownership. Dianna.
Shawn, you are going to love. Wasn't it written by a Marine or It
was written by a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
And it is incredible. And so extreme ownership, if you practice extreme ownership, there's no buckets of excuses. There's buckets of cash probably somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Instead of a bucket of excuses, a bucket of ownership, you'll get a bucket of cash.
Yeah, trade it in.
Yeah. So what about how can we change, if we can't change people's, perception to love doing this, how can we change their habits to be like, okay, well, if you don't love your CRM stuff, maybe we can, tie in some new habits that help you understand the connection so that you understand and love the outcomes.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in, Dianna. I think this is exactly where I felt the conversation should go because it's the thing that you can own as a salesperson, right? Like as a salesperson, the expectations are, what can I take from this? And what you want to take is expectation setting. Mm-hmm. So what you can do in an action item that you can take, it's the easiest action item for moving pipeline, is set expectations on calls prior to the call getting underway, but more importantly, find out the expectations of the person on the other line and find out what they want to learn from that call. And the reason this is important is because in that call, you're going to align and you're going to discover, is this stage happening next? And going full circle back to your question, that makes it a lot easier to get into that CRM and move things around. It makes it a lot easier to say, hey, I got this moved, and now I can go and put that dot on the paper. Does that make sense? But for me, I don't want to go in the CRM if things just didn't go, they went okay.
So what you're saying is, if I can recap this, that one of the reasons salespeople don't mesh, fall in love, and use their CRM is because they're not actually really getting to the next steps with the customers?
Yes. Well, partly. I think it's easy as salespeople to just engage and be involved, and that cannot be automated into a system.
Right.
So how do we get automation into, or how do we, force those habits into the system? Is to establish a system that motivates them and gets them excited to actually correlate the CRM and the stages, the activities of those stages, with what they do in their sales process. So if their sales process is aligned with those stages, it's a lot easier to get in and utilize the CRM. Does that make sense?
It does. Which comes first? The sales process or the stages?
I don't think there's any good pipeline out there that's predefined. It should be fluid.
It has to be fluid.
It has to be fluid.
Well, and here's why, because one person once told me, a coach once told me, people and circumstances change over time. You've got to be vigilant, right? I mean, people don't behave in linear fashions, which actually, you said that a little bit earlier. So are you an advocate for moving things backwards in pipelines too? Like,
I mean, I wouldn't advocate for it, but I would say it's
well, no, but I mean, it's real. Like, things can move backwards, right? It's not just up or out, right?
I'll tell you the flag when something's going to move backwards. Okay. You have an influencer, not a decision maker. You take the journey with them. You're all the way at calibration. You're all the way at negotiation. And they say, great, I'm going to bring my CEO in so we can pitch them.
Yeah.
Danger zone. Check your pipelines right now, folks. Right now for that scenario. Call it out early. Anyway, that's the first thing that comes to mind as far as when you would go back in that stage.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I spend a ton of time while talking in this show, writing about it and working with salespeople on making sure you understand who is contributing to the final decision in this process. Somebody owns the budget, somebody might own the decision, someone owns the risk, someone owns implementation. If you are single-threaded, you're screwed.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and we'll talk. Actually, I think that's going to probably be our next full episode, is how to get multi-threaded in an organization, like the actual tactical how you do that. Because it's a nice thing to say, get multi-threaded, but then figure out your conversion rate. But I think you've really got to actually think how you're going to do that. So anyway.
I cannot wait for that show because that is danger zone. I think the stats recently were as soon as there are more than 4 buyers in the decision-making process, the likelihood of closing drops below 10%. Because if you think about the nature there of that, the more people involved, the easier it is to not take ownership of a no or a yes.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, well,
that's so funny because we've seen stats in the other direction, whereas the more people, and I'm thinking specifically of a stat that Jill Conrad had posted on her blog, having 4 or more connections in an organization increases your likelihood to close by 4 times. So
connection is different than buyer, though.
Decision maker connection, right?
Right. So there's a fine line, between looping every Larry, Curly, and Moe in versus understanding how to. It's almost like, what I say, Dianna, you got to be a conductor of the orchestra. You've got to be the project manager before the sale even closes to understand what resources they need, how to pull people together in a complex sale versus just letting one person go sell it to the other influencers for you.
Yeah.
Conductor, dance, orchestra, I feel sales is dating. It really is. That reminds me of a conversation I had this morning, a sales conversation I had bright and early this morning before this call even. But it's with a CEO who's been so burned before by, a similar scenario. And so I just sat there and was like, well, tell me more about that and tell me more. And I was not going to sell this guy. He's like, well, how do you think about it? I'm like, well, actually,
how we think about it is a little bit different, but have you really given these guys a solid chance? Because I don't kind of feel like they have. So do we want to get into that problem? Do you want somebody else's? That's fine. My competitor has him for a problem, right?
So you gave him some therapy, though, it sounds like.
I gave him a little therapy, but by the end, he was begging for an appointment. He's like, so can we put something on the calendar for us to connect next when I get this research that I'm going to do? And I'm like, sure, what's good for you? He's like, good at this time and this time. I'm like, I can. He's like, thank you. It's dating.
It's dating. Shawn, can I circle back to a question you asked me earlier, and I wanted to get your answer actually on it.
Sure.
How can we get, because I need advice in this as well, running my team. How do we get people loving the CRM? How do we get people, not loving, just using and embracing the system?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of it depends on what you need out of the CRM as far as a company. And it's sometimes that differs in what salespeople actually need out of the CRM. If I could pinpoint the need that the CRM should fill for most every salesperson I have, it's that organization of productivity and prompts for next steps. They're managing so much in the prospecting stage and the follow-up and stuff. They need something to help them move things forward. It's all about helping move things forward. So that's where I focus with my salespeople, is using the CRM as a tool to move opportunities forward. It's the touches and the sequences and the getting creative to make sure all the stuff is here in our CRM. And so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. You could just personalize something or tweak it versus, what am I going to send to this person? Oh, another checking in email. No. So that has been a big change for people who didn't love a CRM or who saw it as reporting, who saw it as, well, I've got to make sure that my managers know I'm doing my job, versus using the CRM in a way to make sure we are tapping into how can we move opportunities forward without exercising so much brain power. I find that people who aren't using those tools like a CRM and sequences and stuff, they're reinventing the wheel every time they think, oh, I should follow up with this person. Oh, I should send them an email. And they spend so much time and energy thinking about what they should do next, not enough time actually doing what they should do next. So that has changed a lot of my sales reps' view of the CRM, using it as like a tool to advance opportunities. That's what it's there for. That's
genius. I do feel 85-90% of sales is repetition, and that we have technology for that, right? So a well-built CRM. Let's not even talk about pipeline and those stages, but just a system in general. The purpose of it is to give you flexibility and movement, and that 10%. Great salespeople are just really good at that 10%. So maybe there's a 90% templated email. But 10% is what happened in that call, and what can I take from that call and move into this email, and like that. Those tools. If you really, really dial it in, the job can be seamless for a lot of sales roles. It can be very seamless and very predictable when you have that. When you use the tools. Yeah, it is like a major light bulb. I did it with a salesperson yesterday. We set up her sequence, and it doesn't have to be hard. It's okay. We'll link to email and phone, and just by the time we had 12 touches mapped out, she was like, that's it. That's it. And she was just so fired up and ready to go. It was awesome. It was like, yeah, that's it. Go sell something.
Well, I love what Michael is saying too, because mastery is boring.
Yes.
The top 1% musicians practice their freaking scales. Mastery is boring, and the CRM is part of that. Although I do have a little hack that I love about CRM, because I use mine religiously. But, one thing is I'm a note taker. Are you guys note takers when you're... Yeah. So what do you do? Like, you're out at a meeting, you're taking notes. You're obviously not putting your notes into the CRM while you're talking to somebody. If you are, your brain is in the wrong place. So I don't know how you do it. Millennial, maybe you're the exception, but, take the notes. But then, what do you really want to do?
Did you just call me a millennial?
No, I was talking to the audience. Hi.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just saying maybe millennials have another way to get digital experience into this. But anyway, me, I'm a note taker. So
what's your hack? What hack do you have
here's
for
the
us?
hack. So the last thing I want to do when I get back to the office or off a call is transcribe all of these important notes into the CRM, right? So I give myself like 4 little bullets of the highlights of the meeting, and then I take a picture of my notes, and then I email it to myself and attach it onto the CRM record. So now when I'm doing my meeting prep for the next time, I can just call up all my notes. They're all there. So I don't have to like, I do keep them in a binder because I'm a little anal about that stuff, but I don't have to. It's all right there in the CRM. I just click on all my notes because there's gold in here that I'm never going to really put into the CRM. So anyway, that's my hack. Enjoy.
That's awesome. That's an awesome hack. And because of your notebook, I want to just say to the audience, every great salesperson there's a little OCD in them. Every great salesperson has some OCD.
Well, and it also, I mean, the other thing about a CRM is I think everyone feels like it's one system everyone's shoving down their throat. Like, the reason I built the selling agency was because I've done most every sales training that you can imagine throughout all my career, like, challenger sale and braintree sales. Mm-hmm. And they're all great, but they all prescribe one methodology to do something.
Right.
And that's insane because we're all different. We're all unique, right? So that's how I built this. And some people are going to be visual. Some people are going to be tactile. Some people are going to be auditory, whatever. I will tell you, most people are still physical learners. Like, the process of writing something down and having it in front of you. Apps and technology are great, but sometimes like a physical reminder of something is actually really, really good.
What was that? What is that behind you?
This is something we've created, the Badass Selling Skills Builder. It's a weekly challenge to improve your skills and accelerate results. It's got 5 different categories, and it's a physical thing that sits on your desk. It stares at you every single day. You focus on one thing a week. And I don't care what your style is, you have to do what works for you. Most people are still pen and paper, notes, like to write it down because it goes back into your brain. So even with your CRM, you've got to do what works.
And it's like only $1 a week, right? $1 a week, $1 per skill.
Most important, as your special guest, mine's in the mail, correct?
This is my proof. I just got it yesterday. It's so cool. It
looks awesome.
It is so cool. It's got, this is not a book. That's the very most first statement. Because I'm just going to plug this for a second. Books are about learning, but skill building is about doing. It's about the actual doing it. You and I mean, we read dozens and dozens of books, but how many things do you actually take away and put into practice immediately?
Only things I put into habit.
Yeah, right. So this is about building habits. So this one's for salespeople, full scope sales, mindset, business development, advancing opportunities, productivity, skill sets. Yeah, all guests of the Sellout Show will be receiving one of the Badass Selling Skills Builders Volume 1.
I think that's great.
I have a spot for it on my desk. If you notice, there's nothing in here, but I have plenty of room for it.
And we're turning the Solid 6 blueprint into a skills builder too, so that you're working on each of the different 6 skills. Anyway, blah, blah. So back to you, Michael. So at the end of the day, really good predictable forecasting is bringing a lot of integrity to each of the different stages, so that when you have a deal in a stage, it actually is there, and there's indications from the customer that they're supposed to be in that stage, and there's a clear pathway to it. Get them out if they're not on that path. Get them out, and then just do the math of your, And I really loved. By the way, I really love that you called negotiation 50%, because when somebody gives me a commitment to buy, I figure we're about 25%. And when somebody actually starts negotiating, I think that's right. And I think people really, I see a lot of CRMs that have negotiation as 80%. And I'm like, what are you smoking? Because it's not. 80%.
And the key takeaway, if everyone just walked away with one thing, ask yourself with every opportunity in your pipeline, do I have happy ears here? Do I have those happy ears? Check them at the door. And I think, people will be very, very satisfied with the results and better forecast models that they build.
It's so good. And then you'll be able to predict your own success, and then you'll be able to make your VP of sales very happy too.
So happy. So happy.
If you love your VP of sales, don't have happy ears. Just by
and
the
if
way,
you don't love your VP of sales, don't listen to this part right now. So
and if you don't love your VP of sales, make up numbers left and right in the pipeline and to their face.
but let's actually tell people why. Because before I met you, Michael, I did not know this about VPs of sales because I've always been a practitioner, right? So what are the 2 or 3 things that a VP of sales needs to be successful? And the reason I'm asking is because the salespeople can help with that success.
Yes. I mean, the one thing above all else, the ring in Lord of the Rings for the salespeople, VPs, is their ability to forecast and predict revenue for the organization. I know the sales individuals sometimes don't take it to this level, but what you're doing is putting and gluing an organization together, an organization that's going to build, an organization that's looking to put more jobs, build economy, build structure. And every leader, every executive team, they want to do one thing. They want to get bigger. They want to get better. They want to get faster.
Yeah.
And it's the salespeople. And guess who's between those 2 people? The VP of sales. So the VP of sales, the best thing they can do is they can manage up by having proper insight into the pipeline with their team. Yeah. VPs of sales, for what it's worth, they don't get fired. They don't get fired for not hitting their number. Okay, they get fired for being dramatically off by their number, by saying they're going to hit a number and not hitting it. Right? If you're able to go in and say, look, we're not hitting our number, X, Y, and Z are happening. This is how we're going to correct over time. Give us the time to correct this. That executive team is going to have a lot of trust and a lot of understanding of that sales organization, not just the VP, sales organization. That VP as a leader can't do that on his own. So just be honest with him and yourself.
That's good. Do you have a back of the envelope question for our special guest today, Shawn?
I do. All right. This one I thought of this morning.
Don't be afraid, Michael. This is very kind.
Are you ready?
It doesn't need to be. It just might not be a pretty answer for a Raw Uncut.
I'm dying to know because I face this challenge in life. I think everyone does. You belly up to the restaurant for breakfast, and are you pancakes or are you waffles?
I'm keto.
That does not help me.
I'm one of those crazy fasting, no food, only 1 meal a day kind of practitioners. I know.
For how long? I'm sorry. There's no
weird.
judgment in there.
I told you it was going to get weird. Anything you ask me about my personal life, it gets very weird very quickly. I've come to accept this. It's fine. I've been doing this for like 5 years, and it's changed my life for what it's worth. It has changed my life, and it's awesome, and it's very difficult in the beginning. But once you get going, man, you just feel like a machine.
Wait, so
that was not the answer you were looking for.
Well, it had freaking nothing to do with pancakes or waffles.
I mean pancakes. Actually, if I had to choose, definitely pancakes.
Okay, so let me back up for just a second. So you eat 1 meal a day?
Yes.
On the days he's not fasting.
Well, every day is a fast, but then sometimes I do prolonged fasting.
I'm gonna have to go Google keto, not and reasons why I won't do it.
Well, I have a suspicion that a lot of your audience might be familiar with the bulletproof diet.
Yeah, I've heard of that, the bulletproof diet.
And I feel I may have lost you.
No, we're here.
No, we're here.
Are you here?
I mean, he did lose me at keto. He's frozen. We'll give it a second.
Oh, here we are. Sorry.
That was not intentional.
Sorry. Yeah. I no more personal questions, obviously. No. I was going to say, I have a feeling a sizable group of your audience has practiced or heard of bulletproof diet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not bulletproof because fasting is no calories. So no matter what that book tells you, a stick of butter in your coffee is not fasting. but the theories are very similar.
That's okay. Well, that's its own episode right there.
Well, yeah. Well, I've got nothing beyond that.
Wait, I'm curious for both of you, pancakes or waffles?
Bacon.
What'd you say, bacon?
Bacon.
I like pancakes better because I hate cleaning the waffle maker, and I have a progressive pancake routine. You know, I'm not at let's please everyone, but this is one area you can do it. You make pancakes and sling them out to my son and my husband, and then I'll add blueberries for my daughter, and then I'll add lemon zest to my blueberries for me. So I have a lemon zest blueberry pancake, and can do it that way. So.
And it's super easy too because you can just throw it on.
Yeah.
I just I don't know, maybe this is not for the show, but I just invested in one of those flat, long skillets that go on your stovetop.
Yeah, I have one of those.
Oh my gosh, super amazing. Here's the funny part. Although I don't eat breakfast, I cook breakfast for everyone every weekend, and I literally set in front of pancakes and eggs and bacon.
That's awesome. Well, fascinating, Michael. I cannot wait to get to know you better and all your weirdness. I just have to say.
He really is fantastic.
I really, see, Diana said I really am weird.
I said fantastic. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, I've got so much good stuff about CRM and a couple things, a couple really good things I want to take back to the sales teams that I coach that are very helpful. And you know what? I think that if we've got anyone watching who has questions, put them in the comments below, and we'll actually get Michael to answer those questions for you.
Yeah,
definitely.
And or hacks to loving your CRM and using it and that kind of stuff. Put those in there too.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Michael. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I love the show. Thank you for having me. I had a ball.
Okay.
All right, bye everyone.
All right, so that was Michael Maynes. Go predict your pipeline now. Get all the junk out. Get all the stuff that needs to move to the next stage, and stop hoping.
And start selling.
That's right.
Goodbye.
Bye.